Hey everybody, and welcome back to kind of a jelly printing session. Today I'm going to make jelly printed cards, and we're also making some collage papers or jelly printed background papers. And I picked some colors. It's ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, light olive, and no, it's olive yellow, I think, and green turquoise. And I also picked the Naples yellow. I'm not going to use it for the cards, but I'm going to use it for one of the collage papers. To make the textures on my jelly plate, I'm using my texture plates. I made them using my stencils together with the Big Shot. Just embossed the paper. It's the backing paper of the stencils. You can use any paper. I recommend a 200 GSM paper or heavier, and then I emboss the stencils, the paper with the stencil in my Big Shot, and then I use those to create the patterns. You can use the stencils directly, of course, to create the patterns. That just gives you a different style, and the texture plates avoid that my stencil gets messed up, so I really enjoy this technique a bit more. If you want to know the exact sandwich on how I emboss these, you can jump over to our blog. There is a description in the blog post, and the link is in the video description. Of course, I'm also linking up all the products I'm using today, and I will mention the names and the acrylic paints also in the video description. I have cut my card backgrounds from the Mastering Mixed Media paper, and I'm printing it with a patchwork style. That means I just print a part of the card in one color, and then I would switch to another color and another pattern and print another part of the card. That gives me a really interesting background, and you can make this with all kinds of color palettes and you will get really beautiful results. I will link up another video I made over a year ago, I think, where I used the same technique. Now that I have printed that green to every card background, I think I have 8 card backgrounds, I'm cleaning my jelly plate. And this will make our collage papers in the end. These prints of the leftovers. Next I'm picking another color. I'm picking the green turquoise. The Amsterdam paints are my favorites for jelly printing. I think they work the best. They do not peel off. Not peel off. They do not make these, they do not bead up. Some acrylic paints bead up on the jelly plate, and sometimes don't. Some paints don't do that a lot. If you have a lot of beading up, I would recommend to just clean the jelly plate with some mild soap. That will help. But for example, the Schminke paints bead up more than the Amsterdam paints do. Here I have a texture plate from our mini texture stencil, and that makes really lovely smaller patterns. And you can use that embossed paper on both sides, and you will get just different, the negative image of the other side, of course, but you get different textures, and that's really interesting. There is another video where I do some jelly printed collage papers using also only texture plates. I will try to not forget to link this also in the info cards. Sometimes the paint dries too quickly on the jelly plate, and then you can't get it off with just one print, so you have to use another layer of paint on top to pick that color up. And here I'm just using that burnt sienna. I will cover the entire jelly plate and then make a print with it. If you like, or sometimes I really enjoy having these mixtures. You will see how this turns out once I pull the print. But for my cards, I didn't want to use this because they are already really colorful because of that patchwork technique. So I don't want to have that layered color that I get here on the cards. A little bit is okay, but that there was too much turquoise left on the jelly plate. I give it a good press so the turquoise paint has the chance to transfer completely to my printing paper. And what I'm using, it's a normal printer paper with a, I think, 160 or 200 GSM. I don't know which paper that was. It's not very important. My jelly plate is clean and now I'm using the ultramarine blue. It's one of my favorite colors. That's one from Schminke. And these just tend to beat up a little bit more, I think, because they are more liquidy and a little bit more transparent. That might be the reason. I don't know. I think it has to do something with the consistency. But as I said, it helps a lot if you clean the jelly plate with some soap. I usually, when I want to clean it completely, I use baby oil, clean the jelly plate, and then I wash it with a little bit of soap to get rid of the oil. I will show you all the backgrounds at the end, of course. I just try to work quickly because I don't want the paint to dry on the jelly plate. There is still some paint left on the gel plate. I will now grab the Naples yellow just because I thought that might be nice for the cards, but then once I printed that paper, I decided that that yellow is not perfect for the cards, and I would just not use it. But it makes a nice collage paper. To print that, I'm going to use that turquoisey one I've made at first when I cleaned the jelly plate, and that gives me a really interesting and layered texture. And these papers are also really nice to use as card backgrounds or for collage. I really like how this turned out. It's a really nice collage paper with a lot of depth. Next I will start with the burnt sienna because that's the color I haven't used on the cards. And I try to use complementaries. And I think that's a good combination because that the green turquoisey blue shades go really nice with orange red. And the burnt sienna is not as bright as a normal orange or reddish color would be. It's a bit more muted and it has a bit more of a natural feel. And I like this combined with turquoise and the green. That's really nice. And here is the texture plate that I made with our mini ink dot stencil. And now I try to fill the empty spaces on the cards. So there is always a space left which is white, and I try to cover that up. And of course, I'm fine when I layer some paints over each other. That's the thing I really like about these cards. And when I have too much white, I would just try to fill these spots. If you're thinking about buying a jelly plate, I would definitely recommend getting you the original one because that's the best. I tried others and sometimes these are totally different. Also a nice collage paper. And I have my jelly plate for I think 10 years or even 11 years now. And it's still good. So it's definitely worth buying the original jelly plate. Here I'm showing you the background papers I made. I don't know, I think about adding some more paint to some of the backgrounds, and I decided to pick the turquoise again. It's also one of my favorite colors. The whole color combination on these cards is one I really like. And that's nice about this technique. You can experiment with so many different color combos. This is also one of my favorite textures, the big triangles. I use the stencil a lot for card backgrounds. Here I carefully try to fill in the spots. Here I decided that it was a little bit too much, but well, that happens. Not every print will be the best and the perfect print. That's okay. Again, I'm trying to clean the plate with one of the cleaning papers. And also that one, I think that's a really interesting paper. You get so many fun prints by just playing. And always when I start printing, I just don't want to stop. Here are the collage papers that came out of this session. There are 4 papers I really like. And I will now show you all the card backgrounds I have. And then we will move on and I'm going to create some cards. I will not make 8 cards. I will keep some of the backgrounds for other cards in the future. But I really like them. And that's a good way of making a big bunch of greeting cards in case you need invitations or thank you cards. You can just print as many as you need, and that does not take a lot of time. We are 15 minutes in now, and that's not a lot for card making, and we have the backgrounds ready. It's now about making the focal images, and I picked one of our stamp sets, the Craft Collection number 6, and I'm going to use the images together with embossing powder. I really like a highlight image on this style of cards because the cards are quite graphic and plain, and I think it works perfectly to have something glittery, something that keeps the focus, the focus on the cards, instead of just using plain ink. I think embossing powder is just a perfect solution. And what I also didn't want to use, I don't want to use something very colorful on these cards. One color is enough because the backgrounds are already quite busy and I don't want to make the focal image too busy, but interesting. So that's the best way is use embossing powder. I picked powders that match the backgrounds, that go with them, have the same color. I have something that's kind of like the burnt sienna, and I've also picked a turquoise. To emboss the powder, I'm using Distress Oxide inks. They do not dry immediately, so you have the time to sprinkle powder on it and heat it, but you have to work quickly because they will dry and then the powder will not stick to them. But I really love the oxides because you can stamp very well with them. They adhere very good to the stamp and you have different colors. And that because of the embossing, in case you have a spot that has not enough powder or the powder might not be opaque, then it's really good to have the matching color underneath. Of course, you can emboss the flower in two colors. You could just ink it up with green and orange and then just sprinkle powder onto the green area and then sprinkle the powder onto the orange area. So you get an image with two colors. I will now stamp the other flower from that set. This is one you have to stamp separately. I start with the center and I will add embossing powder immediately and then I will stamp the stem and the leaves. And the paper I'm using is also the same paper I've used for the backgrounds. It's the Canson mixed media paper. It's perfect for stamping because it's quite smooth and you will get a good stamp impression. And also the paper is good to cut out images because it has 200 GSM. So it's thin enough to cut it, but thick enough to be stable. And again in this video I want to mention the Mastering Mixed Media Expo. I promise it's the last time I'm mentioning this. It starts on Friday, May the 1st. And it's a completely free online mixed media event with amazing artists sharing their knowledge, sharing an art class. So you don't want to miss it. Sign up. There is a link in my description where you can come to the sign up page. It's hosted by Willowing Arts. And you can watch over 35 free video lessons from amazing artists during the next 2 weeks. So it runs until the 14th. I'm stamping two more images, the bird from the set and also one of the leaves. I wanted to make two normal sized cards and two smaller ones. I really like to have these small greeting cards because you can add them to gifts, or just if you visit someone and you bring a little gift, then you can add that tiny card. I think a big card would be just too much, but these tiny cards are really nice. Or if you give someone flowers, you can add a tiny card, but not a big one. So I really like to have some tiny cards in my stash that I can use. I will now heat set these and then I'm going to cut them out and I will leave a white border around them so they can pop up from the background. I'm back with the card backgrounds and I picked these StazOn in ultramarine and I'm stamping some background images from the same stamp set to the cards. So I get another layer and that brings in more depth. I really like to use the same images for the background stamping because then everything stays cohesive. And that's one of my favorite stamp sets because it's so graphic and it has that handmade feel because of these carved stamps. And that's what I really like about it. There are not many left, a few. I think about maybe 20. I don't know exactly. There are not so many left. Maybe if you're interested in this set, jump over to the shop and have a look. We will not restock any of the stamp sets right now, and also none of the stencils. I'm going to speed up that part a little bit because the video is already quite long, so I decided just to speed it up a bit when I'm gluing together all the cards and I'm making the background stamping. I just experiment and play. I also used a number stamp from our Mix It Up 6 stamp set to bring in a little bit of a different texture. I think that works quite well with the whole style. What I forgot to mention, I cut the card backgrounds with a frame die before I started stamping them. They are now a little bit smaller than they were after printing, but just half a centimeter, I think. For the smaller cards, I just used a frame die and I could cut 2 backgrounds from one of the ones I've printed. To all my card backgrounds and also to the focal images, I have added some foam tape or foam dots to glue them down. I think that when they are raised a little bit, they just make more impact, and that's what I really like. And here I just put everything together on a card base. Usually I always thought that I should add a sentiment to every card I make, but I don't know why I did that, because I think sometimes it's really nice to just have a card with an image, and to these cards I won't add a sentiment. Well, I could add one later if I need a special one. I just could stamp one on a banner and then add this to the card. But you could always stamp inside the card or just write inside the card what you want to say. And that's the reason why I left these without a sentiment. Yes, and that's the last card I've made. I will now show you photos of the finished cards. You will also find photos over on our blog. The link is in the video description. I hope you enjoyed today's video and you are a little bit inspired to do some jelly printing. I hope you will see us next time. Bye!